Hi, today we're going to discuss about digestive system as a physiological principles. So here we want to understand the digestive system, which is responsible for breaking down of food into its molecular components for our use and absorption of nutrients into our body. So first we'll discuss layered structure in intestinal tract or tubes, and our stomach and pancreas and liver and small and large intestine and fluid balance in the body. Let's first think about gastrointestinal tract. Gastro means stomach, so gastrointestinal tract is about from the mouth to the anus. So that is responsible for our digestion. So here comes a little bit of anatomy, which is important for you to know the basic terminologies. So let's see from the mouth, from the oral cavity, and where we have the food intake, then it will go down through this esophagus. So esophagus is a long lining up until it meets a stomach. So stomach stays right underneath your diaphragm, which encloses your lungs. So that stomach is a little bit on the left side, and then it goes down into connected to small intestine called here duodenum. And here in duodenum, there are this organ called the liver, which is a very big organ right underneath your right-hand side of the rib cage. And there is also a gallbladder, which secretes bile salts and bile acids that secretes into your intestine. And also right underneath the stomach, there exists a pancreas, which is a floppy organ. So when you do an anatomy with a rodent, it's sometimes hard to find what is pancreas because it's so floppy. And that enters into the small intestine. The small intestine, the top part is called duodenum, and the middle part is jejunum, and the last part is called the ileum. So that composes small intestine, and that enters into a cecum, which is part of large intestine. It starts, and there is appendix connected. And the large intestine is starting from your right side, and it starts to go up. So it's called ascending colon, and then it goes traverse to the this way. So it's called transverse colon, and then later on it goes down again. So that's a descending colon and connected to rectum and anus. So when you can think of this as a clock to attaching on your belly, then the ways it rotates, this clockwise direction is how the colon goes. So this may help your digestion too. So let's see. So first, gastrointestinal tract. What is the function of this digestive system? The first, the solid food, or we need to break down the food into its molecular components. So that's first digestive action is one. And the other of this digestive system's function is a storage, and for store the food and controlled emptying and mixing and secretion, such as enzymes and digestion and absorption into our body. So let's take a look a little bit further. So there exists a valve, and this S, which is specialized region of smooth muscle to control the movement of intestinal contents. So from the mouth, and here is the esophagus, and there is a sphincter. Sphincter in Korean is 과약근, so it's kind of controlling the passage. So there is upper esophageal sphincter here. And also it goes down when it touches to stomach. There is a lower esophageal sphincter. This lower esophageal sphincter is important because if it doesn't work, that very acidic stomach acid can come into upper, which cause pain. And you probably remember a reflex, which sometimes are bad because it may cause us esophageal cancer. And then in stomach, and you can see stomach into the small intestine, especially duodenum area, there exists a pyloric sphincter. And when it goes down through jejunum, ileum, and ileum to small and large intestine contains a bacterial flora, and small intestine doesn't want that. So there exists this ileocecal sphincter, which prevents a backward reflex and prevents bacteria flora coming back into our small intestine. And ascending colon and transverse colon, descending colon, and it goes to rectum. So, and in the rectum and anus, so in the anus, there's two types of sphincter, which is internal and external sphincter. Internal is involuntary, and external sphincter is voluntary. So you can think of it when a person poops, defecate. Sometimes it's in our own will, but sometimes when you're sick, sometimes you can see there's an accident. So digestive tract is when in anatomy, so we can start from this upper esophagus until the anus. You can take it out, and guess what? How long does it span? So in fact, mouth to anus is very long. It actually is almost 8 meters long. So that's amazing length. And there are a couple of glands, a salivary gland, esophageal sphincter, and pyloric sphincter, which connects stomach and duodenum, ileocecal sphincter, ileum to colon, and internal and external anal sphincters. And this sphincter is not only in this big level, there's even microscopic sphincters exist. For example, our blood distribution from the heart and its business end is each tissue that microscopic blood vessel called capillary. That's where this nutrients and oxygen and CO2 exchange is happening by diffusion. And that little capillary has to be also, the flow has to be controlled. And so people discovered that the name is called precapillary sphincter, which is at the front of the capillary. There is a smooth muscle sphincter exists, and it controls the blood vessel. Now I should say that the blood vessel itself is covered with the endothelial cell layer, and outside there's a basement membrane. Also there exists a cell called the pericyte. And this is still controversy whether pericyte control this microscopic local blood flow or this upstream, such as arteriole. There's a lot of smooth muscle. Do they control all this precapillary sphincter? So this is still controversial and very interesting part of our research, because people are curious about where at the bottom of this tissue and capillary, which controls blood flow, which eventually manage to exchange of nutrients and oxygen with the cells inside the tissue and our blood. So let's talk about stomach first. So what is stomach? Everyone knows, and that mixes and crushing the food into, and then some digestion happens. So here's the location of stomach. So you can see from this mouth through the esophagus at the end, there's a stomach here. And what's interesting with the stomach is stomach is kind of an expandable vessel that can hold about 1 liter of volume. And there comes mechanical mixing, crushing, and chemical digestion to convert solid food into small parts. For that, stomach has to be covered with muscles. So let me show you the anatomy of the stomach, esophagus. There exists a lower esophageal sphincter, which blocks the reflux from the stomach. And stomach inside is a very much a folded shape, which is called the rugae. And from stomach to duodenum, there's a pyloric sphincter. And these stomach layer has a lot of muscle. So this muscular contraction is providing mechanical force to aid in breaking down of solid food. And at the same time, stomach secretes a lot of gastric fluids, which is highly acidic, and to keep the pH very low. You know how low the pH is inside the stomach acid? It's actually even 1. You can remember our body's normal physiological pH, which is minus low, the concentration of hydrogen ion, which is proton, and that is usually 7.4, which is a logarithmic scale, so 7 versus 1. So there's a difference of 6 in log scale, which means 1,000,000 times higher concentration of this acidic in the stomach. And the reason is a lot of bacteria coming through our mouth, and those will not survive in this acidic condition. So that's one role of this acid is protect ourselves from bacterial infection. But think of it, this is highly acidic. How can we protect our stomach itself, which is also composed of proteins? And so, you know, we have our own strategy. The lining of stomach includes a layer which protects stomach itself from this acidic gastric fluid. And that's we call a mucus layer. Okay, so, and inside the stomach, there's also digestive enzyme, which, you know, chopped protein. And think about stomach is also composed of protein. So how come stomach do not, these enzymes, which is secreted by stomach, does not digest the stomach itself? So we have developed a very interesting strategy that, hey, initiation of protein digestion, we secrete not the fully functional enzyme, but the precursor enzyme called pepsinogen. So ogen means it's kind of a precursor. So when the pepsinogen entered into the stomach with this acidic environment, it converts into fully functional enzyme called pepsin. Okay. So which can decompose a peptone into amino acid. So now think about pancreas. So we heard about a lot about pancreas, especially pancreatic cancer is very, very deadly cancer because a patient can live only less than 1.5 years after it's diagnosed. The reason it's very inside, it's hard to know the symptom at an early stage. And the pancreas has an important function in the digestion, and that's endocrine and exocrine secretion. So endocrine secretion is the secretion into our bloodstream. So secretion of what? You all know that pancreas secretes an insulin. So let's see how pancreas looks like. So it's right attached on the back of the stomach, and it's connected to our gastrointestinal tract into the duodenum with this hole. So this is how pancreas look like. And there exists a main duct inside. So the main pancreatic duct, and there's a duct cells, and here is a gland cells, which secretes exocrine portion of pancreatic enzyme, which is a digestive enzyme. And at the same time, you can see there's a other portion of pancreas, which is endocrine portion, which secretes pancreatic hormones into bloodstream. So that is called islets of Langerhans. And pancreas shape, this is called head and this is called tail. So exocrine function is producing digestive enzymes into the duodenum. And again, these enzymes are also digestive enzyme. How we prevent this enzyme to digest the pancreatic tissue itself is because we produce this enzyme secreting in an inactive form, so not activated yet, but that has to be activated or converted on active enzyme at the site of action, such as here, the duodenum, they secrete enzyme exokinase, which activate these enzyme. So these kind of precursor enzyme in general we call zymogen. And you know, this zymo comes from enzyme, and zyme means from fermentation or fermenting substance, because fermentation requires probably enzyme. And now let's move on to liver. You all know that the liver is a huge organ. So in your rib cage on the right side, bottom, if you push, there exists a liver. So many times happening medical condition is hepatomegaly, which means the liver becomes huge, okay? Some pathological condition. So liver, as you know, that it involves in digestion, especially it's towards glycogen. Also very important detoxification function, which is neutralizing harmful substance in the blood. And also liver secretes bile acid for digestion of fat. And other things related to biomedical engineering, I can tell you is there exists a field called molecular imaging. So imaging is very important for watching what's happening in physiology or disease process or treatment. Then you have to have a contrast. So there's, based on molecular target, we can give a contrast such as fluorescence. Then we call this as a molecular imaging. And let's say I want to visualize blood vessel in the body, so, or I want to visualize cancer in the body, then you have molecular agents which will bind to the cancer. And interestingly, whatever comes into the bloodstream, the liver actually take a lot of liver is responsible for uptaking and neutralizing that. So for example, MRI agents and some exogenous contrast agent, usually the problem is the liver actually captures them, detoxify. So that's a very important aspect of the safety aspect of molecular aging agents. So now, but today is more about physiological structural aspects of the liver. So this is a very simplifying part. So liver is a lobules, it's a big organ, and you go down to look at it small, and there's a unit structure of the liver. So that's why you can chop off some part of the liver if there's a tumor or there's a problem, still a human can survive because they basically function the same way. So this is the unit, and you can see, so the liver is connected a lot from the gut, okay? So from the gut, the vessels from the gut to the liver is in fact a vein. So we call it as a hepatic vein. But this venous blood from the gut to the liver, it has a little special because from the gut, they uptake a lot of nutrients and they go into the liver as a gate. So we name it as a hepatic portal vein, okay, from the gut to the liver. At the same time, the liver it's a big organ and a lot of cells, so it requires also artery that we call as a hepatic artery. So that these two vessels, blood getting into the liver, and liver has very interesting three-dimensional structure. As you can see here, it looks like hexagonal shape, and that connects to the central vein, which I'll discuss a little more. And also there's a very fine little capillary structure which drains bile. So I found a simplifying diagram here, so this will be easier to understand. So what's very interesting here is, blood from gut is getting to the liver. It's a vein, but I called it as a hepatic portal vein because it's a gate to the liver. And this very interesting structure of the liver case is, to increase the surface area of the liver cell to this blood, they align up, and that's called a sinusoid. Sinusoids is a way that the liver cells called hepatocytes are aligned, and so that they can meet this hepatic portal veins blood from the gut, which contains lots of nutrients or sometimes harmful toxins and substances. At the same time, from the heart that feeds oxygenated blood to the liver is called hepatic artery. And you see the direction is actually the same. So this hepatic portal vein blood and hepatic artery vein actually goes the same direction and mixes in this structure. So they have to drain out total in the middle here. So that we call as a central vein, so blood out. So that's why we call it central blood. Interestingly, all these, the hepatocytes also secrete bile acids or bile salts, and they come into contact with all this liver, and that fine structure, small channel or duct structure is called bile canaliculi. The singular form is canaliculus, and that goes a backward direction, and that also is drained through the bile duct and to the gallbladder to store this and into the gut, so that they will function for digesting a fat substance. So this is very interesting structure, and I'm going to review. All the liver cells perform all of the same functions. A unique circulatory system called hepatic artery, which is from the heart, and hepatic, I said, a gate. So portal vein, both flow into the liver. So liver cells or hepatocyte receive a mixture of arterial blood from heart and the venous blood from the intestines or gut. And these cords of hepatocytes, liver cells lie along the path, and that we call sinusoid, okay? From the hepatic artery and portal vein is drained into the central vein. And on the other hand, bile ducts drains in backwards, reverse direction toward the bile collecting duct. So these special arrangements are in fact realized in the liver. And that's why it's not very easy to reproduce this in artificial organ, okay? So we have to understand this one thoroughly enough to engineer and create a similar one which can function as artificial organ. So substantial blood flow containing both compounds absorbed from the intestine, which we call portal blood, and oxygen from arterial blood from the heart are passing a large surface area of livers, and pathway for collection of waste product and bile. So next time we'll discuss more about intestines. Thank you for your attention.